to another episode of Beating Alpha. This is episode 103, and we have a very special guest on. You will see this man in a few seconds, but first of all, let me introduce to the Barri Griffiths. He's the host of the YouTube channel called Wrestling with Real Estate. Make sure that you find that and subscribe to it. So there's a lot of great content that's already there, and I'm sure there's plenty more coming out. And he talks with the people with all aspects of the industry, so everything real estate related. His whole goal is to help educate as many people to the amazing benefits of real estate. For the past decade, he has been working in the entertainment industry. He previously started in the UK version of the US Gladiators, funny enough, as a Gladiator Goliath. Then went on to wrestle on a TV for WWE as a Mason Ryan, where he wrestled like John Cena, performed on a pay-per-views, and regularly appeared on a Monday Night Raw. He's currently performing for Cirque du Soleil at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas. And again, for the social media, make sure, again, this is the show for you guys, not just to watch consumer information, but at the same time to connect with people just like Barry. So make sure to do so. Of course, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, iTunes, websites, all of that good stuff is going to be included down below. So make sure that you do that. But first of all, Barry, I just want to say a big thank you today for being on the show.
My pleasure, man. I'm happy to be here. And as you were talking, I'm like, I need to cut my bio down. I think that I sent people out because that's a lot.
I got thirsty a little bit, you know.
I think your beard grew as well while you were talking that.
That's a good one. I love it. Look, Ryan. So Barry, one thing that I wanted to start with, again, maybe if we start with your own kind of personal, journey as an athlete, like where did it all started? I mean, you're born like January 13, 1982. So when is this like thought of becoming an athlete and, like wrestling in general became kind of thought of yours?
Yeah. Well, let me go way back then to when I was a small boy in a small town in North Wales in the UK. So you're in Ireland, not too far from where you are. Tiny little town, probably only 200 people lived there. I worked for my dad for a while as a carpenter and an undertaker, believe it or not, because my dad was an undertaker, my granddad was an undertaker, my great granddad was an undertaker. So it was a family business. So I worked in that for a while, but it was a tiny little town. And I always played sports growing up, any kind of sports, cricket, golf, tennis, rugby. Soccer was the main one. Football, sorry, I'm in the US, so I say soccer too much, but football, played any sports that I could. And football was the main one. And I played it till I was 18, 19, and I blew up my knee one year. And I just loved training. I absolutely loved, but I would run for miles and I was tall, but I wasn't that big. So then I blew my knee and couldn't really play football anymore. So I went to the gym, started building up my physique, was in the gym on a Saturday night when everyone else was in the pub. So I was like, well, I'm building this physique here. I'm dedicating my life to it, because I love it and I enjoy it. Maybe I should try and push it further, do something else with it, right? Because I'm putting in all this time, right? I'm acting like a professional in some degree. So maybe I should try and do something with it. So I was like, I had no interest in doing any kind of bodybuilding. It never, ever appealed to me. Not that I have anything against it. I'm a fan of bodybuilding and I have friends who do bodybuilding, always watch bodybuilding. But I had no interest in doing that myself. So it's like, what can I do? What can I do? And it just so happened at that time that I watched some wrestling on TV. I think I saw some wrestling on TV and I wasn't really watching it growing up, but I saw it. I was like, saw these big jacked guys and I was like, I've been an athlete all my life. It looks like I can probably do that. It doesn't look that hard, right? That's what I thought at the time, right? I would find out later that wasn't necessarily the case. So I started trying to find where I could go wrestling, but there wasn't that much internet. This was probably 14 years ago. So what is that? 2006. I don't know how big the internet was there, but it wasn't a whole lot of access of, now you can find a wrestling school, places to go, shows and stuff like that, but it wasn't such a big deal. So it just so happened as well, and just talk about coincidence and being in the right place at the right time of all this stuff. There was a wrestling show coming to my small little town. So it's a town of like 200 people and the wrestling show comes there. It's pretty rare, maybe once a year, maybe not even, but the timing was just right. So I went to the show with the intention of trying to meet someone and start wrestling. So I met this wrestling promoter there. And we hit it off. We started talking, and he started teaching me how to wrestle. He was a 60-year-old man, who'd been wrestling his whole life and had promoting shows. So I started wrestling for him, did wrestling shows all over the UK, did a lot in Ireland, as I was mentioning earlier. We used to do 2-week trips all over Ireland. We used to have a lot of fun with that. And then one day, it just so happened that I was in London, and I went to the O2 Arena where the WWE was, and they signed me that day, and I ended up going to Florida. Probably about 6 months later to Tampa, Florida, a little different to my little hometown. And yeah, just from there, just blew up, just wrestled, in the training school for about a year, and then went on TV, was on TV for about 2 years, did some pay-per-views, like you mentioned, wrestled some big names. And from there, that finished. And then somehow I got a connection with Cirque du Soleil. I didn't really know too much about the company then, to be honest with you. Obviously, since I've learned a lot. But at that time, they were holding an audition because they had a role to fill, and they were looking for a wrestler type person to fill it. They thought that would be a good fit. Just got the audition through luck. Everything worked out, and got the gig, and ended up moving to Vegas pretty quickly after that. So yeah, and now I'm living in sunny Las Vegas as opposed to rainy North Wales.
Or rainy Ireland. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, here you go. So I mean, there's more to story than that, because and I would love to take some parts away and maybe to discuss that in detail, because I mean you don't come across a lot of people like yourself on a day-to-day basis where they're like professional athletes on the level like you are. So one question that I wanted to ask you again, your debut was 2007, right?
No, 2011.
2011. Okay, got it. So the Wikipedia says it wrong. So make sure it's
never believe Wikipedia.
somebody has to fix this. So and your first I remember debut, what was with the John Cena was there, and I think you became a part of the Nexus team. So
So it was crazy. So about a year after I got to Tampa, Florida, I'd been traveling to TV, because they film TV every Monday and Tuesday. One is live, one is recorded. But when they have an idea, so what they do is they have all these wrestlers in this training school, and they try and build up a pool of people that are ready. So whenever they need a certain person for a certain type of position in the show, they can use that person. So they have a pool of guys ready to go that they can use for whatever Vince or the creative team decides. So I guess they decided that they wanted to do something with me. So they were bringing me to TVs, and I was going to some live events and stuff like that. So I was traveling for a while, but you never know what's going to happen. And I remember that day was a Monday. It was on for Monday Night Raw, and it was 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. You get there at 2 when they start filming, because it's live. They start filming around 6. So you're there. You talk, you kind of get used to the arena and warm up and do whatever, sometimes work out. And the whole time the creative team is building the show for the night, and it changes all the time. It's crazy. You think they'd have this a week out almost, right, this show, but they literally, as it's counting down to the show time, they're coming up with the creative for the show. It's crazy. I don't know how they do it, and it happened every week, and it always came together. It was amazing. Wow. So it gets about 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and I'm just chilling, because I don't expect to do anything, because I've been for the past, 3 or 4 weeks, I just don't expect. And then one of my friends says, "Hey, are you doing something tonight?" I said, "No, I don't think so." "Oh, that's not what I heard." So I go find someone from the creative team, and they say, "Yeah, tonight you're gonna do this. You're gonna be involved in the main event. You're gonna join this Nexus team." There was a team, a gang, or whatever you want to call them, that was kind of well known. CM Punk, for any wrestling fans, CM Punk was the head of that. Mm-hmm. And you're gonna interfere with their main match, and on the Monday Night Raw, they're gonna go out with the focus on you. Like the show's gonna out there, and the main event and the last part of the show is always the most watched. So I'm like, oh, okay. It's kind of like you don't get any preparation. You're like, all right, in 3 or 4 hours, I've got to do this. And I had to jump the fence and then jump on the ring. And when you start thinking about it, you're like, oh, I hope I don't slip. I hope I don't, you know what I mean? This doesn't go wrong, or I don't trip, or blah, blah, blah.
I'll look at the right camera.
Yeah, exactly. And that's something that, is very important, because it's all about that shot, getting that shot. Mm-hmm. So it came around, but obviously when it happens, you don't get a chance to think about it. When you go to do it, you just do it, right? It's just the worst is beforehand is thinking, what do I need to do? So yeah, I did that, interviewed in the main match, kicked CM Punk in the head because it was part of the storyline, did something to John Cena, and then we were all standing in line and the focus went out on me at the end of the thing. So it was pretty mad because you think at the time there was probably 5 million people watching every Monday night at the time. So it was like,
it was the peak. Probably it still is the peak. I mean, I'm sure there's millions of people watching, but at that time, because I remember, when I was, I mean, back in the day, like we're talking like 2011, so that's like 9 years ago. I mean, there was a ton of attention, and I'm sure there's a ton of attention going out, but there's a lot of people who are growing up now, like all that type of generation. They're growing up, they're doing different things, have families and businesses and all these things. And now the younger generation, maybe they're not that involved. I'm just guessing. I don't know. I don't have a clue what I'm talking about. But like it was very intense. I remember the time, and I remember before we did an interview, I just went back to the video, like your debut day in 2011. I watched it. I was like, man, there's some good times and good memories. So thanks.
Yeah, it was pretty cool to look back. You don't necessarily always take the time to reflect, but it was pretty cool, especially when you're in an arena full of, I don't know, 12, 15, 17,000 people. I don't know. I have no idea.
What is the feeling like? Can you describe to us? Because not everybody of us can expect that type of, where there's like 15 people, you have 15 people, like 30,000 eyes basically watching you like intensely. So what is that experience like?
It's not that different really, because you're thinking more about what you've got to do, right? It's like that kind of tunnel vision. So I have no recollection about the crowd whatsoever. I came through the crowd, so I kind of remember that, but everything else, I don't really, because you're so focused on what you're doing. And I was obviously a little bit nervous, right? You want to, this is pretty big, right? This is a pretty big thing. So you want to make sure that you do it right. So I can't really remember the crowd, not that time. The only real time I really remember the crowd on a TV show was a pay-per-view that we did. It was the Royal Rumble. I don't know if any of the viewers know what the Royal Rumble is, but it's a pretty big pay-per-view event, probably one of the biggest ones. We were in the ring, me and my gang, the team, whatever you want to call us. It was called the New Nexus. And Booker T, a famous legendary wrestler, came out, and people didn't know that he was going to be at that Royal Rumble. And I remember, because we had time in the ring to stand there. There was nothing to be done except wait for him to come to the ring. And obviously he was going to take his time. So when he came out and his music hit, I remember standing there and seeing 20,000 people just go ballistic. And like, that was really cool. That was like, for the crowd, that was probably one of the highlights for the crowd. Yeah, it was pretty amazing.
Beautiful, awesome. So I kind of imagine that also. So can you kind of, if you don't mind me asking a little bit more questions about that, because again, there are some things that I think personally, again, because I'm a little bit selfish, so like I want to know, but at the same time I know the audience who's watching, they would like to know either, like these details, because as I said, we don't come across people like yourself on a day-to-day basis, and I really appreciate your time today, spending this time with me. So
my pleasure.
The question is, when it comes to the ring names, can you talk about that? How important is that to the entire like character, and like how do you pick those? Because I mean, I'm looking, you got a few here.
Yeah, it's that was always challenging for me a little bit, because I'm not necessarily the most creative person in the world, right? So some people they can dream up all these names, but when I started in the UK, I was having trouble coming up with a name, and my promoter, who was crazy, he was I loved him. He was such a character, but he had an idea of all these crazy names, and I couldn't come up with a name. So I started with a Celtic warrior, because being Celtic, I thought the Welsh warrior, but then I was like, Celtic warrior sounds cool. So I came up with a Celtic warrior. So that's what I started with. And then I think that's what I pretty much stuck with throughout my time in the UK. And then I got to the US, and obviously you're not going to use the same name there, and you've got to kind of come up with something different. So what happened was, when because my name was Mason Ryan, right? It's nothing like the Ultimate Warrior or Hulk Hogan or Macho Man Randy Savage, or you know what I mean? It's not Jake the Snake. It's nothing like that, right? But what happened was, when I was there in 2011, UFC was really picking up, and UFC was a lot more popular than WWE. I don't know if that's still the case. Maybe, I'm not sure. But it was really, winning that battle, and WWE was kind of in a battle with them, because they obviously were trying to get as many viewers, So. Yeah. they were trying to go kind of the same route, right? It's not real, but they were trying to go for more realistic stuff in the ring as well, not so much wrestling type stuff, if that makes sense, you know. So along with that, they wanted more real names, you know. People in the UFC, for the most part, they have real names, right? You know, John Jones, or you know, whatever. I can't think of any other, but all the names that are in there, right? They're real names, they're real people's names, right? So they were going with that. So they wanted you to have a kind of a real name. So I came up with Mason Ryan. I put in a ton of names. I tried a ton of names, and the reason I came up with Mason Ryan was like a pure stupid thing. Was like, I have a friend called James Mason and Ryan Ambrose, and because I put in a list of names, and they checked, and no, we don't like these, or you got to put it through legal to make sure it's not copyrighted or whatever, because the last thing they want is to get a name and then blah blah blah. Yeah. They can't copyright it. So I was like, I'm tired of coming up with names. I think I gave a second page of names. That came back. I was like, wow. All right, put a third page of names, put the names down. And then at the end, I was like, let me just put something stupid down here. It's just like, not stupid, but like messing around, right? So I was like, wouldn't it be funny if I could use both my friends' names and I would be on TV using their names? Wouldn't that be so funny? Thinking that it would never, ever, you know, pass. Well, the following week, the person that was handling this goes like, hey, you know, you've got your name now, right? I was like, oh, what is it? Is it this? Is it that? Is it, no, it's Mason Ryan. I was like, oh, okay. So I had to tell my friends, and to this day, they're trying to get some royalty fees out of me, but I'm not. So yeah, so because it's they kind of, you come up with a name, but they kind of pick, and sometimes they'll tweak it. So a lot of times, guys, when they're in the developmental school, they'll have a name that they've used and blah blah blah. And then as you're going up to debut on TV, then so whoever the creative team will change that name. Mm-hmm. So like one of the most famous wrestlers now is a guy called Roman Reigns, and when he was in the training school, his name was Roman Liaki, I think. So, and then as he was getting ready to debut, they changed it to Roman Reigns.
Yeah. I don't think the first version would have worked, you know.
Liaki, yeah. I think, well, he's Samoan. So I think Liaki was something to his heritage, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
But yeah, Roman Reigns is way better without a doubt.
Yeah, because it's a show. At the end of the day, look, it is like a lot of it is a show. Like I don't like the fact that people are saying like, oh, like you come across those people saying, oh, like WWE is kind of fake. I mean, you cannot fake a jump like from the ladder when it's like 4 meters or 5 meters high, like onto another person, and especially when you weigh like 140 kilograms. How are you going to fake that? So, yeah. but a lot of it is kind of, because I want to kind of go to that a little bit direction, because I know that I love Wikipedia, so I can come up with all these great questions for people to find out. So
Wikipedia is dangerous.
So you can tell us if it's a truth or not, because I'm looking at that you've been on a Gladiator show. That's mm-hmm. like 2009, where you've been you've been as a character called Goliath. So Goliath, yeah. Sorry. So can you talk about that? I mean, how did you came across the show, and how was that opportunity showed up for you?
Yeah, I think it was 2009. So what happened was I was wrestling for this promoter. He was a mentor, not just a promoter. He became a mentor to me, and I wouldn't be sitting here today if it wasn't for him. He was amazing. His name was Ori Williams. But we were doing shows all over the UK and Wales and Ireland, and going, traveling a little bit to Europe and stuff like that. So I was kind of really close with him, and he was getting me onto TV shows in Wales, and I was doing some, shows like that. And we spoke to someone one day about being on some TV show in Wales. And at the end of the call, they were like, yeah, cool, we'll get you on the show, blah, blah, blah. And they said, do you know that they're filming a new version of Gladiators? And they're actually looking for gladiators. And we were like, really? It's like, yeah. Have you thought about applying? I was like, wow. No, well, never heard of it, but yes, I would love to apply. So he calls back 5 minutes later, hey, here's the contact details. So my mentor, he could sell sand to the Arabs or ice to the Eskimos, right? He was that kind of guy. So he calls him up and he's like, yes. And he had a big, strong Welsh accent. He's like, yes, I've got this big Welsh guy, and he's 6'6" and 20 stone and looks like a Greek god. And he was selling me or whatever. So they said, yes, and send us the stuff. Send us your picture, your bio, whatever, and we'll take a look. So they called back a week later and said, yeah, we're really interested. But I was clean shaven at the time, and they were like, how quickly can you grow a beard? We want you to have a beard. We think this character should have a beard that we have you in mind for. Like, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 weeks. And like, oh, okay, we're thinking about having an audition in a week. So then my promoter, I told you what a character was. He started trying to find how to stick on a beard, like stick it on with glue and patches. Can you imagine this idea? And he was calling up all these people trying to figure out how to stick on this beard. Luckily enough, the auditions ended up being in like 6 or 7 weeks. So I was able to grow a beard and I had a full beard. Went to do the audition with, I don't know, it was probably 100 other guys. And you're there and you're like, everyone else, for me anyway, I was like, well, all these guys look big, they're strong, blah, 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 the characters. I was like, oh, I don't know if I got this. I would love to get it. And then it was probably a few months later and I just got a call and they were like, hey, you've got the gig. We're going to have you as one of the gladiators. We're going to call you Gladiator Goliath. And I was like jumping around the place like you couldn't believe it, because it's, even though I was wrestling at the time, it was, in front of 200 people or less most of the time. So it was a very small scale, but this was going to be on national TV, and I watched the show growing up. So it was a big deal. So I got the gig, went down to London. We were in London for 6 weeks, just outside of London in what's called the Sherwood Studios, is where James Bond is filmed. So they're pretty legit studios. In this massive warehouse place where they built all this set and we did all these cool stuff. And it was really cool because it was just basically go and have fun for 6 weeks. We did 2 weeks of training and then 4 weeks of filming. And we would just do these fun games where you compete against, I don't know if you're familiar with the show or if your listeners and viewers are, but it's basically, they have these gladiators. So they're the main guys, and you have these, and usually big, strong, athletic guys, and they have much smaller competitors who go against them in certain games.
Yeah.
And then the winner obviously wins. So you just play these games against these guys for about 4 weeks. So it was such an amazing experience. And obviously it helped as well with my WWE career going later, because being in front of a camera, being used to that, knowing how to interact, where to look, what to do, kind of stuff, that helped a lot later. But yeah, it was such a cool experience, actually.
Well, it sounds like a cool experience. You can play around, have fun at the same time while you're getting paid, and being in front of the people on national TV. So it sounds quite fun. Have you ever explored, like, is that where it ended for you? Or have you been on other shows after, when it comes to the TV?
No, not really. I did some Welsh TV because I speak Welsh. We have our own language in Wales. I did some Welsh TV stuff, but it's pretty small because it's a small audience. There's only 3 million people in all of Wales, and maybe a third of that speak Welsh, so it's a small audience. So apart from WWE, that's all I kind of done in TV. I did explore the idea of acting after my WWE career ended, but I got the job with Cirque du Soleil, so that I didn't last too long after that.
Okay, because that's interesting, because one of the people, The Rock.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, of course. He started like his movie career, and it blew up from there. And maybe the movie, it's called Fighting with My Family.
Yeah, I know this. Yeah, I know The Family.
So, and the funny thing is, you're from UK, so why not you being, again, with your UK accent? Why? Because he got the place in the movie.
Yeah.
So that's
I thought about it. It was just Cirque du Soleil came up at the time, and it was a great job. So at the time, and with Cirque, we did work 5 days a week, 8-hour days. So we work a lot, a lot. We get 4 weeks off a year, but it's still, the rest of the time it's go much, so there wasn't real time to be doing auditions and to be doing other stuff and to be taking from, and I love working for Cirque du Soleil. So I was like, all right, I found something that I'm comfortable with, I like, and I would be crazy to give this up to pursue acting, right? Which could have worked out, who knows, right? But I was and still pretty active. And it's not that it's too late necessarily. I'm 38, so it's not that I'm past it or anything, I guess. But I think I have other focuses, and I think it kind of worked out, I think.
Yeah. That's what I'm looking to do. I'm just looking to light the light back up again a little bit, just a little bit, tiny little bit.
You're trying to be my agent.
Yeah, because I mean, it's awesome. There's definitely opportunities for people like yourself, and you've been on the show. So why stop there? Because again, if we just look at what Rock has been accomplished, I mean, and I'm sure there's more examples just like him. Who, and I mean, because you got used to the stage, to the entire game, so it's kind of, so I think you have a lot of kind of traits that would be great at, like TV shows or whatever that might be. And I mean, you have this kind of asset, and of course we're going to talk about real estate, but one of the assets is, again, your like TV presence and the things that you can do. So like, why waste it?
Yeah, maybe we'll see. But there's also, I'm also, like you mentioned there, pretty focused on real estate, because the thing with acting, to some extent, there's no certainty, right? That's what I'm finding out with being in the entertainment industry, and I'll get to that later with why I'm such a big fan of real estate. Having a wife and a 1-year-old son now, especially, it changes things. When it's just me and my wife, or even a single guy, you can kind of go and wander and do what it is, right? You have no responsibilities, but I have a responsibility to provide a roof and clothes and food and shelter or whatever for my son now, and it kind of changes things a little bit, right? So the thing with acting is the uncertainty, right? And this, even though I have those experiences, it's always going to be super competitive. It's not like I'm going to be the only guy that has those experiences and has, that's 6'6" and 280 pounds or whatever, right? There's not that many, but there are other people out there that fits that category. So it's,
I get it. So transitioning to the real estate, again, I do understand part of the reasons, because I know there's a lot of like baseball players, because in some sport, like it's baseball, basketball, it's just like, you already know how many, like football, you already know it's going to be 5-10 years, or your career is going to be about that like time frame, and that's it. So they're kind of looking from different ways to kind of continue to generate that income, and one of the ways is, of course, is real estate. But what was your kind of initial thoughts, or maybe you came across some people, or there was kind of an event that influenced you to pursue the real estate investing journey?
Yeah, this is a question I always ask people in general about real estate. How do you find real estate, right? Because not everyone finds real estate, and even if they find it, they don't necessarily go for it because they have a bunch of excuses and reasons why they can't go for it, right? But for me, and I think for a lot of athletes to some extent, and a lot of athletes, unfortunately, they get drawn into spending all their money, right? How, what is it? I don't know. I heard a crazy stat of like something like 80% of all NFL players, once they finish their career, in 2 or 3 years later, they're broke, and they're making crazy money. I was not making NFL money. I wish I was, right? I would have been fine. But for me, and I was always okay with money. I didn't spend it like crazy, but I didn't invest it either. But for me, I had no plan B. I had zero plan B, right? I just had a plan A, which was I was going to be the world heavyweight champion. And I thoroughly believe it. And I had that focus, and I worked hard, and I was committed to it towards it. And people talk to me, and they would talk to a lot of the wrestlers about having that plan B and having an alternative idea of what you're going to do with your life. But me, no. My plan A was be world heavyweight champion. My plan B was be world heavyweight champion. My plan C was be world heavyweight champion, right? Nothing else really mattered to me, because I was focused on that, and you couldn't tell me otherwise, right? And I wasn't arrogant with it. I just had that belief in myself, and I didn't tell people. I wouldn't be like, yeah, I'm going to be the world heavyweight champion. I just believed it in my head. I thoroughly believed it. And it wasn't coming from a place of arrogance. It really wasn't. Hopefully that doesn't sound arrogant to your listeners, but I just believed it. And I had a trajectory that kind of was going that way, to be honest. It really was heading that way. And for whatever reason, it didn't quite work out. Timing, injuries, some other stuff, right? It just didn't work out, right? And that can happen to anyone. And so what happened, the real defining moment was in January of 2014, I bought a house for $430,000, right? Expensive house. Had that mortgage, which was $2,600 a month, $2,600 a month, which I could afford at the time because I was still making pretty decent money in WWE, but I bought it as a house to live in. I liked the house, didn't think of investment whatsoever, really. I kind of thought maybe it might be worth more in the future, but that's about it, right? I like the color of the walls. I like the kitchen, not the investment, didn't fit an investment strategy. And in April of that year, they didn't renew my WWE contract. So now here's a guy who has no education really, to some extent, right? It's not that I was illiterate or anything like that, but I have nothing to fall back on. I can't go do something else because all my life I've focused on being a wrestler, physique, fitness, everything like that. And I guess I could have gone in that field, but I had no plan B. I had nothing to fall back on. And I've got this $2,600 a month mortgage payment to a house that I just moved into that I didn't want to sell because it was bad enough that my dream came to an end. But I didn't want to sell this house that I loved either, because that would have been a double whammy, right? It would have been, I can control that. I can control not selling this house. I couldn't control them not renewing my contract. So I was at a point, so I was like, I need to keep this house because otherwise it'll mentally really break me, right? So I was like, so I started looking into it, renting, how to find a renter, how do you, screen a tenant, all this stuff. And it's me down that rabbit hole of real estate investing and what you could do and you could buy and do all this stuff, right? And we might get into later. But when I was like, wow, this is amazing. I can do this and like create a lifestyle for myself and stuff like that. So that's what really led me down the path. And I don't know if you probably speak to most people, right? Rich Dad Poor Dad is, the universal book that everyone seems to read and reference, but it's amazing that I read that book. There's a website called Bigger Pockets. It's kind of a real estate forum as well. I kind of dived into that and just realized that I wanted to invest in real estate as a plan B. And then I got my job with Cirque du Soleil maybe a year later, so I knew that I could do Cirque du Soleil and do some real estate investing on the side.
Got it. So kind of, transition turned out to be like, like you find yourself in the time when the contract is not renewed and you're like, whoa, what am I going to do next? And kind of in that time where there was like uncertainty, and I think a lot of people can relate during these times, you found that there is opportunity hidden in that, kind of uncertainty. So that's kind of awesome, the way you discovered it. But
Yeah.
if we talk about the deals itself, I mean, like what type of deals are you currently looking for?
Well, so initially, like most people, like a lot of people, right, it's the single family, right? You don't realize what's out there to start. So even though I found real estate investing, I didn't completely understand it, right? You buy a property through an agent on the MLS, which is the multiple listing source, which is here, is just where they're all listed, right? Mm-hmm. And that's how you do it, right? You put 20% down, you use a bank financing, and you do it like that. And then when you have money to buy another one, you can do that again, right? So my goal, and I luckily had some people talk to me that said, hey, figure out what your goal is, what your number is, how much you need to live off every month. And I think mine was 8,000 or something like that, 8,000 a month. I was like, okay, that I can live pretty comfortably off that. And then, so how many houses do you need that? Well, if each house cash flows $200, I need 8 houses, right? $200 I would need 40 houses, right? I'm confusing my math. Whatever the math is, right? Ignore that part. I'm a wrestler for a reason. whatever the math is, I needed 40 single family homes. That's what I figured out. I needed 40 single family homes, which would mean every time you buy a house, you don't just look at one house and buy it very often, right? You're going to look at 10, 20, 30 houses. Then you're going to have to negotiate. Then you're going to have to get bank financing and everyone else. And then I need to save down the down payment for every single one of them. And it's like, this is going to take forever. But I was like, okay, maybe 10 years time, I'll be able to do that. Like most people that, think that's all available. Well, one day I was introduced to someone who talked about multifamily, about buying apartment complexes. And I told him, hey, I thought I was so clever. Hey, I figured out my goal. This is what I need to do. 4 houses a year for 10 years. I'll be there. I can do this, blah, blah, blah. Get that financial freedom number. It's like, yeah, hey, good that you have your goals, good that you have it figured out. But do you realize if you buy one apartment complex with 40 doors, you're there in one transaction and you don't have to do all these other transactions. Mm-hmm. Plus, with apartments, a lot of times you can use other people's money. You can pull other people's money together and kind of use that for the down payment and any renovation work that needs to be done. Mm-hmm. So my focus in then, I've sold all my single family homes. And my focus now is on apartments. So buying smaller apartments to start off with and then transitioning into syndication. So I currently own 1 6-unit. So it's a small six apartment unit in Cincinnati, Ohio, that I'm looking to transition and do what they call a 1031 into something. Mm-hmm. As I reposition that property and create a lot of value, 1031 into something that's probably 20 units or bigger, and then at the same time, I'm looking at 20 to 50 units to buy myself with either my money or partner with some other people. And then the goal is, once I've had the experience with those and I've created that track record, and I know better what I'm doing to some extent on those, to transition into doing larger syndications.
Got it. So very interesting. I mean, came across the single family and came across the person. Shout out to the person who said that you can acquire one deal and get the 40 doors.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
that kind of save you a lot of time and money, I think.
I think so. And plus it's a lot more scalable. And I think, with commercial real estate, commercial residential, you can make bigger numbers. It's bigger numbers to start off with, right? You're usually talking millions rather than hundreds of thousands, but it also means that you're going to make, 10% on 200,000 is 20,000, right? 10% on 2 million is 200,000, right? So it's, I think you can get to your goals a lot quicker, right? If you can, for one, I think the problem a lot of people have is that mindset, right? Is that $1 million number, for example, right? And I know I had it to start off with, right? You hear that $1 million number, and it's so intimidating. Like $1 million, I'm going to buy a property for $1 million. How is that possible? How can I do that? There's all this stuff, right? But all you realize is the difference between 100,000 and $1 million is a few zeros at the back, right? That's all the difference is, right? So it's
exactly just a mindset.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%, just a mindset, 100%. Yeah.
So what about the deals itself? Because again, by the way, it sounds that you're looking for deals out of state. So have you looked at any deals in Las Vegas, or that's not the market that you want to be in?
Yeah, so to backtrack a little bit, I started investing here in 2016. I bought my first investment property here in 2016, and I still had the one in Florida. I call an accidental landlord. I accidentally became a landlord. I didn't plan to be a landlord, but I accidentally became a landlord, right? And it kind of worked.
Maybe that's a story that we want to hear also, because everybody will have to become an accidental, landlord with some additional cash flow.
Yeah, well, there wasn't any cash flow, unfortunately. So what happened was, this was a $2,600 mortgage, and I was like, I need to get out. I can't be eating this. So I ended up taking someone for $2,300. So I was making negative cash flow. The only thing was, this tenant agreed. This house it was one story, but it had so many windows all around there. When I bought it, it didn't have any blinds. So it had so many windows, and it was great because it had so light, and you could see it was on a little like lagoon / lake, so you could see it, and the view was beautiful. But to put all the blinds in would have cost a fortune, would have been probably $10,000. So the deal was, he was going to go in for $2,300 a month, and he was going to put blinds in all, I don't know, 20 or 30 windows, whatever. It was a ridiculous amount of windows. So he was going to do that. So I was negative cash flow for the first 2 years technically, but I didn't have to pay for the blinds. So, which I wouldn't recommend for anyone, definitely. But I didn't want to lose the house. No, it was for the first year, sorry. For the first year, he would pay $2,300 and put in the blinds. And then the second year, he would go up to what my mortgage was. He would just match my mortgage for that. So then I did that. So I was losing money on the property, but I didn't want to lose the property, and it was a great property, and I assumed it was going to go up in value over time. So I thought, okay, I can hold on to this, $300 negative cash flow a month. And I don't recommend that to anyone, but luckily I had some cash in the bank that I'd saved that, I could float, and I was doing some other wrestling stuff to keep paying that. So that one was not a good investment, but I held on to it, and the experience was worth it. Then I started buying single families here in Las Vegas, and I rented when I first got here because I didn't know how long am I going to be here. I'm moving from the other side of the country here to a job that I don't know and understand yet. What happens after a year if I buy a house and I have to move or whatever, right? That was my theory. Now I would do it differently. I would have bought a house straight away, but I bought an investment property before I actually bought a primary residence here, before a house to live in. So I bought a single family home. I bought it for $173. It was a foreclosure. Put $10,000 into it for $183, and then I had someone renting it for $1,250 or $1,250. So which it cash flowed about $200 or $300 a month, and because by the time I fixed it up, it didn't have much repairs and maintenance and stuff to do with it. It kind of just ran itself once I had a tenant in there. So I did that, and then probably 6 months later, I bought a house to live in, a primary residence, which was it's great here. I don't know who your audience is, if it's UK or US, but you can get in with 10% or 5% or even 3.5% down. You don't have to put that 20% down. So it was another foreclosure. Bought it for $234, and put a little bit in it, but not a lot. And we lived in, it was in a great area. So I had these properties, and the idea was to turn that into a rental as well. But like I said, I met this guy, and he told me apartment complex, and I was like, okay, I don't want to focus anymore on single family homes. And the whole time the market's hot here in Vegas. Vegas goes like this. It goes up and down and up and down, right? It's boom or bust. And luckily it was going up. So just through nothing else but pure luck, these properties were going up in value. So I was like, okay, I can make some money on these. So last year I sold both. Was it last year? Yeah, it was last year I sold both. So I sold the first one that I bought for 173, put 183 in, and sold it for 237. So not bad, not a bad little profit. And the other one I bought for 234, put about 5,000 in, and sold for 307. So not bad, but bad little deal. But the idea was I wanted to sell also because I wanted to be in multifamily. So the start of this year, I bought a 6-unit in Cincinnati, because what happened was, like I told you, so it was great when it was going up and I owned properties. But when you buy, you don't want to buy, near the top or when it's really going up, because especially here in Vegas, right, it's going to go like this. So it's, for me anyway. So with multifamily as well, it's valued on the income approach, right? It's valued on what the income minus the expenses, which creates what is known as the NOI, that divided by what is known as a cap rate. That's how the value is derived. So I wanted somewhere where it was a lot more stable. I knew if I can control the income and the expenses and increase the income, lower the expenses, I could increase the value because it's based on that. And as long as the market's doing this, I know I can do that, right? I can increase those things. So I wanted a lot more stable market. And Cincinnati is one of those markets, right? It doesn't really go up that much, but it doesn't really go down that much either. So it was a lot more stable. So I picked up Cincinnati, which is in the Midwest here. So I went there, which is crazy because it's 2 flights away from me, which can be a bit of a pain in the ass. But it's a really stable market. I actually like the market. They've got some job diversification. There's some population growth there. There's some job growth there. I mean, it's a city that rents a lot. A lot of people, I don't know as a percentage what it is, but there's a lot of renters there. So, you're always going to have a pool of renters there. Yeah. So I bought this 6 units in January of this year. I bought it for $300,000. All 6 units needed renovating. It was a bit of a mess, a little bit, but that's where you get value. And I'm hoping once I've turned all the tenants and renovated all the units, it's going to be worth $600,000, because there's a property down the street that's just selling that's probably not as nice as mine and doesn't have as higher rents. That's trying to sell for $600,000, and they're probably going to get it. So that's where I am with that. Yeah.
I have so many questions right now. While we're talking, like my mind just blows, and I'm like, oh, where do we start? Again, I know we have kind of limited time, but there's a few questions that I wanted to ask you. First of all, like what type of states have you came across? Because like when it comes to decision-making process, have you decided to invest in Cincinnati? Of course, because, as multifamily operators, there's a lot of people looking, Southeast, Southwest because of the baby boomer trend. So, but why Cincinnati in particular? Because people talking about Georgia, Florida, and Arizona. So all these different states. So why Cincinnati in particular?
Yeah, there's a lot of good states, and truthfully, there might be a better state actually to invest in. Like you said, Arizona, the Carolinas, right? North, South Carolina is a super hot market. Georgia, especially Atlanta. You have Florida, which is really, really hot. Texas, of course, which is very popular as well. What happened was I had a real estate coach. So when I transitioned into multifamily, I started listening to podcasts, learning all this stuff. And the more I researched, the more I realized, my goodness, there's a lot that can go wrong here, right? There's a lot that can, come back to bite me, right? If I don't know it, right? You're never going to know anything, right? Even if you have a coach, you're never going to know anything. But at least if I know the main things that can hurt me and have someone watching over my shoulder as well, that can be huge. So I hired a coach. So obviously we were talking about picking markets, because he said, look at Vegas stuff. And I looked at Vegas, and it just was so ridiculous here, especially for multifamily, because what happens here in Vegas is people from California come over, because California is even twice as expensive. So they can buy a property here at, that gets a 5 or 6% return, and they're over the moon with it, right? Whereas in California, if they get a 2 or 3% return, they're excited, right? That might be a good return in California. So they come up here and they push up the market, they push up the prices, and they they make everything overvalued here. So I was like, okay, this doesn't make any sense. I don't want to spend all this money and get a 5% return here in Vegas, right? When I know there's other better markets out there. So I was telling him this. He's like, well, okay, well, what are you looking for? I said, well, I'm looking for stability. That's the main thing I want, you know. I don't care if it doesn't go up that much, but I don't want it to go down that much. So he said, well, I live in Cincinnati. So his name is Joe Fearless. I don't know if you're familiar. Okay, yeah. So he's a big time real estate syndicator. He controls over $1 billion worth of real estate now, I think. So successful guy, cool guy, same around my age actually, which kind of really annoys me. He's my age and he's having all this success. He makes me look bad. But he said, have a look in Cincinnati. I live here. I think it's a solid market. I don't necessarily invest here, but for what you're looking, it might be a good fit. So I, looked at the job growth, look at the population growth, look at the job diversity, looked at some other key metrics, and thought, yeah, this is a stable market. So I flew out there, met with some brokers, and kind of toured the city, drove around the city, and I was like, I like the city. It's not too big, but it's not too small, and it's got that cool vibe about it. And with Cincinnati, a lot of times people might not necessarily migrate there, but they don't leave. A lot of people don't leave Cincinnati, and a lot of people that they actually go back there. They might leave for college and stuff like that. So it doesn't have that population drop. It always kind of stays pretty stable. So that's how I ended up in Cincinnati. Now, with hindsight, I might not have picked Cincinnati for one simple reason, and that is it's 2 flights there. So for people listening, that ease of travel is huge. So every time I go there, I have to fly usually to Atlanta and then to Cincinnati, which adds it's a 4-hour flight to Atlanta, and then you're talking a 2-hour layover, and then an hour and a half flight. So it kind of takes all day to get there, and it kind of hinders me, sometimes like, do I really want to go to Cincinnati this weekend? And I always go because I need to go, but it's that's one thing I would tell anyone who's listening. If you're picking a different market, yes, look at all the metrics that you need to look at, of course, but try and pick somewhere that you can fly to in one flight at least. And if you can find somewhere that you can drive to, even better, right? Because if I could drive there, that'll be even better. But yeah, try and pick somewhere that's only one flight. Now, luckily for me, my wife is a flight attendant. So I fly for free. So that's a big plus. So there might be some direct flights from here from Vegas, but yeah, the ones that I have to fly with, I had to do a connection. So that's how I picked Cincinnati, and I like it. I made some good connections. I have a team up there, so at this point, I don't think I would change, because to learn the market, another market again, and it's not like I know Cincinnati in and out yet, but I know pretty decently, and I've got a good connections. I have fellow investors, I have friends, I have contractors, I have property manager, I have brokers that I talk to. So I have a lot of stuff going on there. So I'd be crazy to change at this point, I think.
Got it. So you kind of answered my question, because the what I wanted to ask you is, like, you're planning about selling off the property, the 6-unit deal, once you're going to be, renovating it. So the question was kind of, are you planning to invest into other, different states? But you kind of said no. So you're going to continue to look for deals in Cincinnati, at least this year?
Yeah, I'm continuing to look now. Yeah, I was just looking at a 21 unit last night, and then a 42 unit last week. Yeah, it's just tough now. We're, I don't know when this interview is coming out, but it's October 8th now. And from what I'm seeing, there's no price reductions. If anything, prices may have gone up slightly, especially in the 20 to 50 unit, right? I think there's plenty of people out there that are buying. Interest rates are low, super low, low as they've ever been, I feel like. And there's just a lot of competition for multifamily right now, because people, they don't want to be in retail, they don't want to be in office. It's just a lot more appealing, I think, to people that they can buy a property that has 20 tenants in, and day one you're cash flowing, right? You're buying a business that day one cash flow. So who knows what's going to happen with office and retail, right, in the commercial space. So there's people coming in from that for that stability, right? I think it's not necessarily the most sexy kind of investment in the world, right, but it's very stable, and it done right, you can get great returns from it. So yeah, it's kind of tough to find deals, and I hate saying that, because it just sounds like there's always deals, right? There's always deals. And that's more a reflection on me, that I need to be doing more, but it definitely is harder to find deals right now. So definitely looking. If I can find the right deal, I definitely buy right now, but I'm also kind of cautious, very cautious. My underwriting has changed. I need a good story why that property will you know, can weather a storm, can weather some sort of recession. You know, tenant pool is important to me right now. Where do the tenants work, right? If they all work at Chili's and Hooters and, you know, service-based industry type jobs, probably not a good investment because I feel like they're going to hit, right? But if there's stuff, you know, that they can work from home, that, you know, tech type jobs, you know, I like that a little bit more. So yeah, I'm definitely still looking in Cincinnati. I built a team. So the problem with, you know, yes, you can pick other markets, but it takes time to build a team. You know, the contractors that I have now, they weren't the first contractors I've used, right? They were the second or third, you know, and they found them, they're you know, they're not the cheapest, but they're reliable, and, you know, they work with a property manager, so I don't think they're gonna, you know, do me over, because they get a lot of work from the property manager that I use. And obviously if they do anything they maybe shouldn't, you know, the property manager is not going to use. So I have the team in place, so it just makes sense at this point to invest in. Like I said, I like the Cincinnati market in general anyway. So you know, I'd have to, you know, for some people listening who, you know, might be new, when you build broker relationships, right, that's, you know, there's other ways to find deals, but that's how I like to find deals, with through brokers. And these brokers, they get a million people calling them every day, you know, and they're the ones that find the deals. So they contact all the owners. So they'll have deals that they don't put on whatever service that there is. It's LoopNet that most people use here. Yeah. And it's a service that they say where deals go to die, right? You can find deals anywhere, and sometimes there are deals there, but it's usually where they say where deals go to die. So they're not the good deals. So to get those off-market deals that everyone's heard, right? It's a buzzword, right? Off-market, right? Is that, and just because it's off-market, remember, that doesn't mean that it's a good deal. But to get those off-market deals, you have to build those relationships with a broker, because if they just meet you for the first time, they're not going to be like, hey, Mr. Jones or whatever it is, right? They're not going to just give you that deal, because they've worked hard to get that deal from that seller. And if they find someone that is going to buy, and then they go through the process and, you know, this guy can't close on that property, well, they look stupid to that owner, right? And they're going to lose their reputation, because as much as as a buyer, you're trying to build credibility with brokers, they have a credibility themselves that they have to maintain, you know, with owners and with sellers. So you have to build that relationship. So to start somewhere else, I'd have to restart that process, and it can be done, for sure. It can be done, but you know, with, like, for example, one of the brokers, I exchanged Christmas cards, right? I think I sent him a birthday gift or something like that. We text, you know, once or twice a week, you know, and keeping pretty good contact. You know, he's kind of a friend at this point. So to start that process over is going to take 6 months to, you know, to 9 months to probably get to where I am now. So you have to restart that process, relearn the market, because it takes a while to relearn. Yes, you can look at the figures on the screen, but you got to go to that market, right? You've got to understand, you know, talk to the people, talk to the barmaids, talk to the Uber drivers, you know, and get to know the market. So these things take time. So to change, yes, maybe I could find a better market that's one flight away, and that's you know, maybe hotter, that has more population growth, more job growth, better job diversity, and it's going to go maybe up more. But, you know, you've got to also balance that out with your time, and, you know, what are you actually trying to achieve?
Got it. So a lot of great information. So, you know, thanks for sharing those great tips. And
it's just my opinion, right? It's not, I don't know if it's necessary.
Again, you have a great source of, when it comes to the education, you know, like the name that you mentioned. I mean, it gets around, you know, he had the conference like last year. So the name is really known, like, in the industry. So like, it's no wonder that you're, you know, building the business successfully and taking the right steps to do so. So, but the one thing that I wanted to ask you, because again, the deals that you're currently having in the pipeline, let's say if you're not going to come across any great deals that you will be able to, you know, 1031 or close on this year, would you be investing in some of the deals as an LP, or are you going to continue to look for the deals?
So I've already invested as a limited partner in one of Joe's deal. That was for a few reasons. One, I was sitting on some cash, which, you know, I'm not a big fan of, and I'm still sitting on some cash right now, which, again, I'm not a fan of. But I think now more than ever, it makes sense. I'm not worried about inflation yet. Some people might think inflation, but I think inflation seems, from what little knowledge I have, you know, I'm listening to and reading stuff, it seems that inflation might take some time to kick in. And so I think if I'm holding on to cash for the next 6 to 9 months, it's okay. It's not going to eat away at my money, and it's worth it to have that dry powder ready when the deals, I think, hopefully will come along. Who knows, right? But I was sitting on cash, so I invested as a limited partner in one of Joe's deal. It was a 450 unit deal. And the reason I invested was for two reasons. One, I wanted to see how he does things and how their company does stuff, right? So when you become a limited partner, you get their underwriting, you see their webinars before they start raising money. You see all this stuff that they do, and you learn from that. You learn how they did it, why they did it, right? And then you get to see how they handle investor relations, how they report their financials, how they handle distributions, how they what kind of monthly newsletter you get. You see all this stuff, right? And then during this pandemic also, I've seen how they handle stuff when things go wrong, right? And if I wasn't in this deal, I wouldn't have learned this. So I always say to people, if you're starting out, you don't necessarily need to get a mentor. I'm a fan of it. I think, you can argue either way, right? You can get a coach or not. It depends on you as a person. I don't think there's a right or wrong to that question. But you can also invest as a limited partner rather than being going through the mentor route, because you learn so much at that time. And plus, you're getting a return on your money. If it's the right investment, I'm getting an 8% preferred return on that money every year, plus whatever the property goes up, plus my capital. I'll hopefully get a return on get my capital back as well. So I'm getting all these things. I'm learning. I'm seeing all these things that they're doing. Plus, I'm getting a return on that money. An 8% return is not a bad return, right? It's not the best return in the world, but it's a pretty solid return, especially when you factor in the tax benefits of multifamily real estate. So I invested as an LP. Going forward, I don't think I would do it again, just because I think I can get a better return on my money, and I like being active. Maybe in the future, once I've created that number where, I don't know, my net worth is a few million, maybe I would invest a lot more passively at that point, because I'll have a lot more disposable income. But at this point, I'm not at that point. I'm trying to grow my wealth. I'm at the wealth creation point in my life. So, the goal is to like I mentioned with that deal, to take whatever I invested initially, make it worth more, 1031 into something else, do the same thing with that one, and just keep growing that equity in the property, and keep growing my net worth, and obviously keep growing the cash flow at the same time, right? So that's kind of my goal now. And I think limiting, for whatever you want to do, investing passively can be brilliant. It can be really, really good. And I'm a big fan of it, investing passively for the right person, right? It depends on you as a person. So for busy professionals, I'm a big component of investing passively. So if you're a doctor, dentist, lawyer, whatever it is, and you're great at your job and you work 10 hours a day, 6 days a week, right? It doesn't make sense for you to buy a single family home and then be on the one day off trying to fix a toilet or trying to paint or whatever. Now, if you love that, go ahead and do it, right? And there's no right or wrong. I'm just saying, I think in general, they're a great fit for passive income because they make good money as well. So if you're doing a job, focus on your job, right? Don't focus on stuff you can pay someone else to do, kind of, right? Focus on your job, right? You're a dentist, you're a lawyer, you're a doctor. Focus on your job. Keep being good at your job, right? Don't lose focus of that job. Don't lose focus of what's making you that money. Then invest that money passively and get an 8%, 7% preferred return, plus maybe a 15% IRR, right? An annual return of about 15%. And that'll make you rich in your sleep almost. And the good thing about that is you don't have to do anything. It's mailbox money. You have to vet the general partners and the syndicators up front, maybe take a look at the deal as well. And then every month or whatever, every quarter, whenever you get distributions, make sure it is what it is. And that's it, And you're also using their experience. So when you pick a team, you should also pick guys that have a successful team, right? Yeah. The guy running the deal doesn't need to have necessary experience, but if he has guys around them, the contractors, the property managers, the legal team, right? If they're experienced and they know what they're doing, well, you're using that to your advantage, right? Whereas if you're starting out and you've never done a real estate deal in your life, well, you're going to have to learn a lot of hard lessons. You're using the lessons that they've learned to grow your money again. So I think those are a few of many, many benefits of investing passively, in my opinion.
Oh, definitely agree with you. I mean, just like the one that you're investing with, I mean, in one of the deal you mentioned, the 458 unit deal is, and I'm guessing it's not in Cincinnati.
No, it's Dallas.
Yeah, because I wanted to guess. I wanted to say Texas.
Oh, my best. Yeah, Dallas Fort Worth. Yeah, sorry.
So good, lucky. So here we go. We're buying a lottery ticket today because I'm on a run right now. So Yeah, text.
Okay.
Got it. So
We're splitting it 50-50, right?
we can, of course.
Okay. I'll send you
Listen,
the 50p in the mail.
listen, the question that I wanted to ask you again at the same time while you're being, because you mentioned again building a credibility, having all these conversations with the brokers, just connecting with them and building the relationship, which is crucial in multifamily syndication business. Again, you're kind of established in the industry because like what I'm thinking of, like if you're gonna come across some people, like they will be like, I have no clue who you are, and you're like pulling up video from YouTube, hey, that's me, like I'm national TV, like look at me. But like you already have the credibility, you have that kind of a going. But I do understand what you mean, like getting those contacts and relationships with brokers. But can you talk about why is it so important? Because I mean, we connected through social media, and you having the YouTube and the podcast, and you're making those episodes, which is like 1.5 hours. So why is that so important to the entire game of multifamily syndication?
Yeah, so just to take a step back, the credibility is so important with brokers, right? I think we touched on, but they need to know that you're going to close, right? They don't want to waste time with people that's going to, they're going to say, yeah, I'm going to buy a 100-unit property, and you have no money, no experience, no nothing, right? So why should they're going to waste their time sending deals, waste time taking you to the property, waste time talking to lenders, waste time taking it to the seller, right? So the credibility is so important, right? Because they're human like us, right? They only have a certain amount per day. I don't know if my credibility, if my past helped me that much, maybe a little bit initially, but past that, you have to reply to emails, underwrite deals, show that you know what you're talking about, right? You have to do all these things. And if I didn't have any of those, it wouldn't have mattered if I was Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, I don't think, per se, with them, right? They wouldn't have taken me seriously. But then, yeah, definitely past that, having the YouTube, having my podcast, definitely helps create credibility with them, because they see that you're interviewing people in the space, you're learning, you have, if nothing else, you're having a dedication to doing, a podcast every 2 or 3 days. Plus you're growing your network, right? So you meet other people in the market, and then once you speak to them, like, hey, I spoke to John and blah, blah, blah. And so the more people and he said, oh, he's looking at this deal, blah, blah, blah. So the more you can talk and the more right? And the more you learn, the more they're going to take you seriously. But definitely having that podcast as well helps, because it also creates that network, and also creates, improves your knowledge. For me, that I've learned so much. I've interviewed people, not just from multifamily syndication, but from all kinds of stuff. But also, every podcast that I do, or any interview that I do, I always learn something, one thing for sure, every time, if not more. So because of that as well, it's just improving you as a person. So the benefits are just absolute. I'm sure you well know that benefits are just unbelievable. When I started it, I was like, I feel like I should do this. Is it worth my time? But it's been absolutely amazing. Even if I was to stop now, everything that I've got out of it so far has been 10 times more than I ever thought was possible.
Exactly. And the mentor of yours, Joe, like I'm sure he dedicates a lot of his personal success to having almost, I think it's almost 2,000 close, so maybe above 2,000 episodes.
Daily
Yeah,
podcasts.
daily podcast. So yeah, he probably talks a lot about, thought leadership and having all the social medias and the reasons why you have to have it. So that is awesome. So again, one last thing that I wanted to ask you again, because like in my personal view, I mean, you accomplished quite a lot. I mean, when it comes to your personal journey, being a professional athlete, being on national TV, where you have 30,000 eyes watching you, and saying your name, and like doing all these crazy things that people can sometimes even imagine. I mean, you've been going through all the different things, and now you're meeting all the different people, and it's just networking all over the place, and having being on podcasts just like this one, which I really appreciate you being on the show. And but what is the one thing, or maybe kind of esoteric question, what is the legacy that you're looking to leave behind you?
Huh. That's a great question. Truthfully, I don't necessarily know. I think if it's anything, I think it's bigger than or smaller, depends what way you look at it, than the real estate and the fame, than anything, is just be a good person. I think, truthfully, I don't know if that sounds like a generic question, but I don't know. When you asked me that, I had no idea you were going to ask me that, and I really haven't really thought about it too much. But I think, yeah, being a good person and trying to make, it sounds corny, but trying to make the world a better place, right? It's like, be the change that you want to see, right? It's just doing the little things and trying to, stuff. I don't know. Yeah, I think if I was to pass today, I would rather people said I was a good person and a good guy than a famous person. I think for me, I think as I'm thinking about it right now, as you asked me that question, yeah, I think my legacy would be to be a good person. I think.
Here you go. And that's a good legacy to have. That's a good solid goal, you know? So
Yeah, absolutely.
definitely. So now you're gonna have more time to think about it. So no worries. Next time you'll be ready for that.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's awesome. Well, I really appreciate your time, today. Barry, it's been awesome to kind of, see your journey through all these years. I mean, from, growing up and, like reaching the heights, and becoming a professional athlete, doing the TV shows, and, hopefully maybe we're going to see you doing some more, who knows? And transitioning that to becoming a really professional, like real estate investor, by the way you kind of, like speak and describe the way you conduct business. Again, the first thing, you surround yourself with the right people, which is like everybody knows kind of Joe, like the way he operates business and the way he conducts it. So that's really cool. And you're on the right path, to building your business and reaching your personal, financial goals. So that is awesome. And I definitely encourage you guys and girls who are watching these episodes, so to, as I mentioned at the beginning, to make sure that you contact with Barry on social medias and keep the conversation going. Follow his journey, ask him some questions. It could be fitness or could it be real estate investing, who knows, but make sure to make those connections, because that's what this show is all about, to connect with people and make sure again, because a lot of people are now looking to invest in real estate, and maybe that's something that you want to do, with Barry. So yeah, so make sure to do so. But Barry, really appreciate your time today. It's been a real pleasure to connect with you and just to get to know a little bit of your personal journey.
Yeah, it's been fun, man. It's been fun. I enjoyed this conversation. Thanks for having me on, man. And yeah, for anyone who wants to continue the conversation, I have a link on my website. If you guys want to schedule a call, it's called wrestlingwithrealestate.com. On there, there's a link to sign up for a 30-minute call. I love to talk about real estate. I can talk about this all day and all night. So if you reach out there. If there's any way I can help you whatsoever, I'd love to have that conversation.
Here you go. And I can see that this man can talk for hours. So I said there's going to be 1 hour and a half, which we're actually getting close to, but we can go over that. So look, it's been a true pleasure. One thing, guys and girls, that I wanted to ask you, if you share this episode with a friend of yours, the friend that I'm talking about is always talking about real estate, investing, multifamily, passive income, but never pulls the trigger. So I think this episode will give a lot of motivation, strategy, inspiration, all the great pieces that are missing maybe for that person to kind of start the steps into multifamily investing world. So make sure to do that. Again, Barry, I appreciate you being on the show. And as always, I will see you in the next episode. Thanks for watching.